what you went through is your struggles, is your story, and it's so important that people understand that they may see Byron the success, Byron the guy that's got it all together, that's traveling all over, doing canine training, you know, the work that you did in North Carolina after the hurricane, and all the things that you've done, and think, man, that guy's got it all together. But it's important to hear this part of the story.
Yeah.
But you're still crazy, man, as hell. You've even recently said it that all the hobbies that you have something to do with death.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, I was going to bring that up. Like,
I mean, like, totally.
Yeah.
He said it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I like things where your inability to pay attention to detail results in your death.
Well, that leads us right into Mr. Beast.
That was a no joke cold call.
It's good to have you back in studio.
Man, it's an honor, brother.
So it was, let's see, 5 years ago was the very beginning, and we're calculating, it was episode 219 for those who are looking. I want to go back and listen to it. And then 232, I'm guessing 232 was probably 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's been, anyway, a long time. We got a lot of ground to cover because there's been some really cool stuff that's happened since those previous episodes. But we're also going to do like a little recap. Is what I thought.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So you went in the Army out of Destin, Florida. That's where you grew up.
Well, Pensacola, yeah.
Pensacola.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know the Pensacola part. See, I thought it was Destin.
It's kind of all the same geographic area, the Panhandle. I live in Destin now. Well, actually, when I first came on, I was living in Crestview, and then what was it, Fort Walton? I don't know.
No, I do remember Crestview as well. See, I'm from Milton, so we always say Pensacola because nobody knows where the hell Milton
is. Yeah, now I live in Defuniak Springs on a ranch.
Whoa, Defuniak Springs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a rough part of Florida.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I mean, it depends. You know,
if you're wanting to find the true South, it is
very true South.
That is the true South. That's the true South.
Your wealth is determined by how many teeth you have in your head.
Man, that was the town that time forgot for a while.
I'm rich.
They're all fake though.
Yeah, exactly. It's like veneers.
Nice.
All right. So you grew up in that area, and you told a story back then, and I think it's worth repeating about how you had dyslexia.
Yeah.
And so you really struggled as a kid.
I did.
And the only way that you were really able to pass the ASVAB is because prior to that, you had been working really hard on trying to correct it, and you got into a program.
I did. Yeah, my mom really, she found this program called Expressways to Learning. And, oh boy, the technical stuff has probably slipped my mind, but basically you're right brain, left brain dominant. You know, I go to bed, learned everything on the left side of my head, and then I wake up and now it's all on the right side, you know, and I'm working off that side, but I can't recall it from the other side. And so essentially the program, don't ask me how it works, but I basically would learn, and I remember they used to have like flashcards, and they would flash the problem, and then I would have to pick the answer, but the problem was only flashed for fractions of a second. And then, yeah, it just kind of like worked.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say I never struggled with it after that. It wasn't until I got to really honestly dive school. So when I went to CDQC that I really started gaining confidence in my academic abilities, you know, and I remember we would be sitting outside in our UDTs and our t-shirts, and, you know, I remember one of the instructors walks back past me, and I'm just drenched. Looked like I just got out of the pool. And he's like, "Why are you wet?" I just get nervous when I'm taking a test. He's like, "Hold on. You can jump out of an airplane in the pitch black dark, but you can't take a pencil and paper scares you." Yeah, Roger, sir. Or sergeant, whatever it was. And he's just like, what the F? You know, like he just shook his head and I went in and, you know, and of course, you know, through, you know, knowing how other guys were, you know, I called it the Key West triathlon. You know, you run all morning, you swim all day, and then if you wanted to go anywhere, you had a bike ride everywhere you went. So dudes would go partying on the weekend, and I would have to stay home and work extra and study harder because I had to learn Boyle's law and, you know, all the different, you know, laws of physics and physics, and that shit ain't easy.
I didn't realize that you struggled through the military career up to a point.
Oh yeah, like when I went through Master Breacher at Regiment, you know, those are academic equations. I would have issues with that and have to work harder. It wasn't like something that just like disappeared, but what it did was help me recognize the problem, and I figured out how to work through that problem. And really what it boiled down to is perseverance and having put in that extra work. You know, I didn't have, you know, after you, I'm a peacock, got to spread my wings and fly, you know. Mom's not there anymore. You know, dad's not there anymore. You are the only one that can be relied upon, you know. And so the old adage, no one's coming to save you. You got to worry about yourself. So, you know, and of course it was funny because, you know, you have a valve in your nose that when you tilt your head back, if you don't know how to shut it off, all the water inside your mask will come out through your mouth and you're gagging. I remember I couldn't keep my mask charged in dive school. And the instructor's like leaning over, he's like, if you don't figure out how to keep that mask charged, I'm going to drop you. And I'm terrified, you know, I'm like, I think I was like an E4 or a corporal or something like that. And I was like, I gotta practice this. So I'm in these like crappy barracks down in Key West, and I'm in my tub, charging my mask, trying to get as high up on the wall as I can to get my head to fall backwards so I didn't like flood my bathroom. So I was like, trying to figure out how to, and one of the instructors walked in to do like a surprise inspection on the room, and he's like, what the F are you doing in here? And I'm like, mask full of water, like, I'm practicing, Sergeant. He's like, carry on. Like, he literally locked there. He was like, effing Rangers, man. Like, because I was like one of the few. There was only another guy named Chandler, who actually lives local to me now. He's retired and does bodybuilding stuff now.
So do you still dive, like on the weekends and stuff?
Yeah, I actually got out of the Army eventually and became a commercial diver, underwater welder. And
that's different though. That's
bottom rocking.
Yeah, that's different bubble blowing.
Oh yeah, that's kind of like terrifying.
Yeah,
it was like,
what's the deepest?
I want to say it was like, I have to go back and look at my logbook.
Take a guess.
700 feet.
Oh, geez.
I mean, you sound like a Smurf, but yeah, it was something like that.
Oh my God,
that's nuts.
Yeah, you're like in a system. You have to go down.
No claustrophobic issues or anything then?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, dude, like I have a few videos, but if you could hear the audio, I'm screaming like a little girl. That would, you know, breathing helium. Like you're like, I have one video. And we were checking, it wasn't actually a really deep dive. We were doing a sled check on it. And what it is, it's this big apparatus that they drop over a pipeline. And it has all these nozzles that blow at an insane PSI, like can tear your body apart in seconds. But what it does is it quite literally slides like a sled and blasts the tube under the bottom of the ocean and buries it automatically. So it like just fits over. It's super cool. And he's like, hey, I need you to go down. You got to check this. We got to do a pneumofathometer. It's this like tube that blows bubbles and then tells you the approximate depth. And I'm out there doing my thing. And he's like, hey, just go over to this spot. And I'm going to go over to this spot. But it's like, what's taking you so long? I'm like, I had to squeeze. He's like, you just squeezed through the thing you did. And he's like, I was wondering why you were squealing like a little girl. And he's like, you're not supposed to be in there. I'm like, oh, I was a cherry diver at the time. I was like, oh crap. I'm like trying to figure my way out. I'm like, oh Lord, this is a little terrifying. And he's laughing. He's busted out laughing. He's like, you're a complete retard.
So what was the wildlife down there? Like anything, because I know like I'll go fishing in the Gulf. They're taking us to artificial reefs. Or
craziest thing that ever happened to me. We were doing a decommission of a oil rig.
Yeah.
And they had this, essentially like a tripod like we have in here, and it has basically sonar in it, and we throw the whole thing off with the rope on it, and the wire comes up, and then it just kind of spins, I guess, underwater. It's been years since I've done it, and basically we get a sonar reading of basically the bottom of the ocean. So now the dive supervisor can see where the apparatuses are, or wherever the work site is, right?
Yeah.
But you also pick up large sea life, and it was my turn to dive, go down. I was actually on deck talking with the other diver. He's telling me, he's like, hey, I've got because visibility is low. So yeah, sometimes you're working in complete, utter, like zero viz. And I get to the bottom, and you're working fast because you got a bottom time, and then you got to get decompressed. So,
What is your bottom time, Jim?
it depends on your depth, but you go down and,
I mean, like 80 feet is like 20 minutes worth of regular.
Oh, no. Just so commercial diving, you're bent. Like
Automatic.
they rip you up. You may have an underwater decompression time, but at around, I want to say it was 60 feet, they basically rip you to the surface. They completely strip you down from head to toe, buck naked, and shove you right back into a chamber, blast you down, and run a table on you, and you're in the chamber for, whatever the table says, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. Sometimes longer than the time you were working on the bottom of the ocean. But I remember dive supervisor, his name was Sean, hilarious. He was from the 82nd. And he's like, diver, whatever my number was, I don't remember. But he's like, diver so-and-so. He's like, Byron, you got some large sea life coming towards you from your right. And I was like, all right. You just tell me to be aware. Could have been whatever. The only thing that we came up with, and we're pretty sure it was a whale shark. But because it came to the surface of the water. But I remember I was doing work, and you have a camera and a light on your helmet, your hard hat, hard hat diver, and I looked up, and everything in my view, my ability to see, was scales and moving. And I was like, oh, everything's being recorded too, And so I just basically went back to going to town and wrenching. I think I was tightening a flange at the time. And I just like, yep, that's not there. If I don't see it, it's not there. And I'm just going, doing my thing. And I remember I got basically, as it went past me, it blew me off my feet. So it's back fin was so strong, it blew me. I went, oh, and I got back up, and I was like, whoa. He's like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm trying to go back down. I was like, hey, you got, and then of course they're counting down your how much time you have left. So it's a race to get as much done, and of course you're competing with the other, divers to try to get who can get the furthest. I got the flange all tightened up. You can do it. He's like, it's like, hurry up, send the freaking the impact. Consider down now. Hurry. I'm gonna smoke the crap. It was like a lot like Ranger Regiment, because you'd have the tenders up top, and which I was one as well, and it's very Ranger Regimentish. You're like, I'm gonna smoke the absolute dog shit out of you if you don't start speeding up. Like oh. Don't screw up my work.
What kind of impact are y'all using at the bottom of the ocean?
So they use, everything we get is obviously surface applied.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a big rotor screw up there, huge. And everything's got poly rope attached to it and duct taped all the way down it. And basically all they'll do is, I mean, literally, it's on a big old hose. Drop it in the ocean. That's it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, goes all the way to the bottom.
And explain what that is.
Like a pneumatic air gun.
Yeah,
like
it's a pneumatic.
Yeah.
And you're just dropping it to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
And it works at 700 feet?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have to turn PSI at the top to push that down. You know, and that's pretty much how it's the same thing with like, everyone's like, how do you weld and cut?
Yeah.
Underwater, it's electric. So it's all different, you know, and don't ask me because it's been so long, like I can't remember all that stuff, but obviously different polarity and, you know, DC versus AC, and one electrocutes you, one won't in the water. And, but even so, like even when you're cutting, which I have tons of video of, but you sit there and you can feel, you get all tingly. You're like, ugh. And you're like, make it hot, and then make it hot, make it cold. And then you're just burning through the Broco torch, and, you know.
That's nuts.
And it's really crazy. I had a dive buddy of mine he used to put the cutting torch, and it's the, I guess the wire, whatever you want to call it, the electrodes to the man, I'm drawn all
to the rod thing
that holds I can't the gun, I can't remember all the names. It's been so many years. You like screw it out and stick the Broco in it. So, and he held it between his legs, and he calls me at one day. He's like, "Hey, guess what? I had just gotten my vasectomy." He goes, "I got mine for free." It's like, "Why?" He goes, "Apparently you can't hold that thing between your legs because it makes you sterile."
Oh gosh.
Yeah, his name was Red Atwood. Red's he's a phenomenal dude. 7 foot tall guy, beard like yours, Red. I was like, "When are you gonna cut your beard, bro?" He'd pull it up and tie it.
I was gonna say, how the hell did he get it in there?
He would put the neck dam on. He'd part his beard down the center, and then he would put a ponytail behind his head on the neck dam, and then he would make sure the helmet like lashed in without getting
that's dedicated, man.
Oh, it was. And he was like, "When are you gonna cut it, bro?" And he's like, "When it interferes with my urination." I was like, "You're absolutely ridiculous, Red. This is so stupid." Yeah, he'll tell you. He and I have got funny stories, like working on dams and working out west, and we had a hand float in front of me.
A hand?
And he goes, "Dude, was that a hand?" And everything's recorded. And it was a glove, and it was super clear that it was a hand. Like it was cut off. Someone's personal hand. And I did not want to be on this job anymore, and nobody else did either. And we knew that if I had reported, it's like, "Yeah, that's a human hand. They're going to shut it down. I'm going to have to get the hand. They're going to go down there. Now we have to search around this dam that's like 100+ years old." And Red, I come walking up, I was like, "Hey, I think you need to switch out your some of your stuff." So I come up, and as I'm coming out of the water, and Red's like looking at me, and we're taking my helmet off, and he's like, I'm like doing the knife hand thing to my throat, like until the camera shut off. And he looks over, he's like, "Hey, go ahead and shut off the camera." He's like, "Was that a freaking hand in that glove?" I was like, 100%, 100%. He's like, "Okay, you didn't see that. I didn't see that. None of us saw that, right?" "Yeah, none of us saw that." "Okay, cool." Of course, we're like checking out, like, is there murders? Like, what's going on? And of course, we find out there was an accident like further downstream with a boat, and somebody had fallen off a boat, and a prop chopped their hand off. And I happened to just float right in front of the trash rack of this dam.
Ah, jeez.
Trash rack doing what it's supposed to do.
Oh, it was, but I'm like, "Oh God, I'm gonna find a dead body in here." So the rest of the time I'm dying, I'm like, so what am I gonna see?
How long did you end up doing that?
I was a commercial diver for almost 5 years, and then when everything dried up out offshore, Obama sent everything overseas. All the jobs we went from making terrific money to making like barely minimum wage. The divers that they wanted to keep on staff, we were having to work the yard and guard the gate because we had our TWIC cards and stuff like that. So I was like, I can't sustain my family and child support. So started looking for it, and that's how I ended up meeting Red. Atwood out in Utah. And then he's like, hey, we became really good friends. And they offered me a job I couldn't resist. And of course, I go out there for that job, specifically for that dam.
Yeah.
It was in Idaho. And I remember calling my now ex-wife. It's like, hey, we're moving. Like, we got 30 days to pack up everything we have and get out here. And she's just like, what? It was the best thing I ever did. I mean, that place is gorgeous.
Where'd you go? Like Coeur d'Alene?
No, we lived in Orem.
Which?
Orem is like near like American Fork, Salt Lake City. It's
okay, so in the square, not in the Panhandle.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, but about 5 years.
Okay. Then what'd you end up doing after that then?
That's when everything kind of fell apart for me.
Yeah.
Like, well, it had already fallen apart once, and I had pulled myself out, and then basically the company that Red and I were working for at the time started to go under. They couldn't sustain us. I literally was like, couldn't do anything. So I tried to go into my first business, and I was selling like fidget spinners and stuff and marketing that, and was doing stupid phenomenal with that, making an absolute unsurmountable amount of money. And then, you know, it's a flash in the frying pan. That ended not well. And then my wife, obviously, we ended up getting divorced, moved back to Fort Walton. And then that's when the whole me trying to find myself started. I was homeless. Started doing stuff with GSMSG. You met me shortly after the Over the Hump. The suicide attempt was all during that period. Yeah, that was the rough time. That was a rough time. I was when, couldn't pay child support. Driver's license was getting suspended. Couldn't make any money. Couldn't get to the job. Didn't have a valid driver's license, and couldn't do. It was a complete shit show for several years. And then basically I was like, you have to live well below your means to basically get out of this. So I just lived under a bridge in my car.
Damn.
Oh yeah. Went to school. I initially started in Utah. I went to started to initially go to PA school in Utah. And of course, to be close to my kids, and I'm moving back, they didn't have a program at the college that I was transferring to. So the Voc Rehab was like, well, we have this nurse to NP program. So I joined that program. So I started doing that. And then pretty much towards the end of that, and I was almost done, like, with school out in Utah. And I basically had to switch programs, which restarted the clock. So it was like a hardship for transfer stuff. So it was like, I'm almost done. And then now I'm having to go back to school to a program, and I'm with a bunch of high school freshman girls. I think I was like one of 3 dudes in my class. And I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way. And then at the time I had started that's when Rescue 22 came in. VA wanted me to take on a bunch of medication, and they said, hey, you either start taking your meds or we're taking away your disability. And then I was like, well, we got to come up with a solution, because I'm not doing that. I already tried to kill myself once. So I was like, all right, well, they were like, you can take a service dog. I was like, oh, this is amazing. All right. And of course, in your brain, you're like, Army's like, the Army mentality is like, free dog?
Yeah.
Let's go. Call the number. We'll leave the company nameless. And they're like, okay, we'll take a deposit. And it was like something like 10, 15K. And it was going to end up becoming like a total of like 25K.
Yeah.
As you and I were discussing earlier. And I was like, I'd be living in my car in a Scion TC with a broken sunroof under a bridge that I regularly get notes in that says, thanks for this soup kitchen from Stan and the boys. That's where I learned 20 was a 20.
Yeah.
My friend, it's funny now, there's all my friends are like, Byron's like the gayest guy, straight guy we know. But it was made out of necessity.
Yeah.
you know? I'm kidding. I'm kidding, everybody out there. Sort of. So I call up my buddy and I'm like, hey man, I'm in a predicament. Yeah, I was getting back into a dark space, like you can only live in a car for so long before things are. And he's like, first things first, dude, you got to like get an apartment and you got to have a place for a dog. And that's, that became my priority. It's like, oh my God, for me to get a dog, I got to do this. Okay, well, I got to maintain my, because at that time, my disability was paying my child support and my attorney fees to try to pay for my divorce. I was also simultaneously in a custody battle. So everything was going to that. And yeah, I got that apartment. Facebook Marketplace was my best friend. So proud of it. I was like, oh, I got it. And then I met my wife, met this smoke show of a woman. I was like, hey, come back to my place and check out all my secondhand furniture. It's
not a Scion TC under.
Yeah, I was like trying to make sure. I was like, oh, I got to get this thing. Oh, and it was funny too because it was. I lived under the bridge because if it rained, I would get water in there, and I would go to the gym because it was a 24-hour gym. It's the only thing I could afford. Yeah, I had showers and I had free Wi-Fi. Yeah, so I could do all my school assignments there and still get my workout on, which is where I met her. And it was odd because I didn't invite her back to my place for a long time, and she's just like, and finally I did.
There you go.
I'm so proud of myself. Look at this, guys. Awesome. She was none the wiser, and then she was like, finally found out about everything, and she's like, oh, geez and Pete's. And then we literally, as the relationship developed, she's like, you're making a lot of money, like just training dogs for a hobby with your buddy. Like, what if you just like quit doing what you're doing and focused in on that? And, I had started doing some executive protection with a canine and then whatnot. And I was like, okay, all in. I went into work one day and I wasn't totally sold yet. Bunch of unfortunate events started to occur. And it wasn't anything like bad. It was just realizations. You know what I'm saying? Like people. Just people. And it specifically is like this bariatric patient and, nobody had put barrier cream on her. So I just squirted the barrier cream and having to change this person's, sheets and everything and working. And I'm like, wow, what the crap? So, and it wasn't even my job. And so I just put in, they cussed me out because I didn't warm the barrier cream. Instead of saying thank you for cleaning, because and it truly was a lifestyle issue for this person. It was like, I chose to maybe no one forced the burger into their mouth. Yeah. But, I was like, dude, I can't do this. There's no way. No. So I went into the room, grabbed all my stuff. Said, where are you going? I was like, I quit. Figure it out. I'm out. Went home. Went all in on the canine stuff, and that was it. And it was off to the races. And then it was just one major win after another.
At that time frame, I want to say, wasn't that the same time frame that you had the ammo store as well?
I did. Yeah. I did. It was the same time we were making it. My wife.
You were doing well until COVID, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly. COVID got that ass. Dude, we were working and my wife, and it was crazy. She's such a badass. She's like in the Air Force, active duty, working in a hospital, doing all the back end work for the canine stuff, doing all the back end work for the ammo. All of her spare time, obviously we didn't have any kids. Her and I hadn't had any kids yet. She's in there, just master loader. Like I love watching her go to the range now. She's like looking at like people's other ammo. She's like, this is garbage. And everyone's looking at her like, who's this like short stuff knowing about, the neck length and, crimping and how far a primer is supposed to be seated. And, she starts making all these dudes feel uncomfortable. And she's like, bro, she'll tell you what's up. She knows all about the ballistics. But yeah, I would be doing protection, dog turnovers and training dogs. And we would take turns doing different things. And finally, that tanked because they were wanting basically, you didn't have like 3 years worth of raw materials just sitting on standby. That's a loose number, but there's no way to keep up. And I couldn't keep up with it. And then when loading ammo, whether you're loading on a Mark 7 or a Camdex, it's pretty much you're just sitting there staring at the machine, and they're always messing up. And you'd be loading from 6 a.m. until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was just horrible. I mean, I love reloading, don't get me wrong, but it'll make you hate it. Just kind of like the Army with anything fun.
Yeah.
Used to love skydiving. I still do now. I used to love diving. It'll make you hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you start doing it not for a hobby and for a living, too, though.
Yeah.
That's
really anything.
Yeah, that's it. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Dog training is probably the only thing I've not gotten to a point where I'm like, screw this, I hate it, because it's just always constantly changing. And then people genuinely need you to produce that product.
So because you're dealing with two personalities, you're dealing with the dog's personalities and the owner's personality.
Oh, yeah.
So are you training owner just as much as you're training dog, or
more? You're training that owner because, I mean, what's common sense, as we already know, is not very common to most.
So you have like a handover process before you give this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're one of the very few companies that do a very comprehensive turnover. And if you get a family protection dog from us, it's a 5-day process. White glove turnover. We're in your home. We're working through the whole thing. We're doing full-blown scenarios with the dog. Like, okay, you can go for your run today, and I'll come out and.
But like the 8-year-old has to control it just as much as the husband has to control it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody in the house is
going to know what to do or what not to. If the 8-year-old doesn't have enough maturity, I'm going to be like, okay, don't ever do this, or this.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy for me too, because I have 4 feral children.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They're still feral. So yeah, you really have to like focus in on that, because that's the weakest common denominator.
Yeah.
So
you put a 120-pound Cane Corso with a 60-pound 8-year-old.
Yeah, we don't do too many Cane courses. We do a lot of like behavior, like just regular training with Cane Corsos, but they're just kind of a slower protection dog.
Yeah.
We do predominantly Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds on the occasion.
Yeah.
So
now this is BTS K9.
That's correct.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to check them out, you guys do like just basic training, or are you doing all of it?
I mean, if your brain can think it, we do it. There's a few disciplines that we've done, but we don't. I refer out, like for instance, gun dogs. I refer them out to like Old Dixie Kennel, who's a 3rd Ranger Battalion Ranger up in Decatur, Alabama. That's not my specialty, but we do basic, advanced obedience, severe behavior modifications, obviously service dogs, all service dogs. It doesn't matter what the service disability is. We do it.
So like seizure awareness, diabetic awareness.
Yeah. Well, alert.
Sorry, alert and diabetic alert. Yeah.
So yeah, we do all of that. Mobility, forced retrieve, and we've gotten pretty creative with a lot of things specific. My wife's working a really unique case where the dog indicates, I forget what she called it. I just drew a blank on the name of it, and I've known it forever. But basically the dog holds its leash, a very specific type of leash, in its mouth, which is indicating to the person that they're about to go into a quote unquote seizure, giving the person enough time to excuse themselves to go take their medication to prevent others from seeing. So it's a very subtle but very observable indication that the dog.
Wow. That's very cool.
Oh yeah, it's super cool. My wife's like becoming the master of service dog training.
So you guys get a lot of like positive feedback. Like that's got to be it's very really rewarding. Like
it's huge. It's the best. It is the best feeling in the world to see your clients. And of course, for me to be able to have built a business with all of these trainers, and that they are And I have pretty much all the same trainers that I've always had, with the exception of one. And they're so passionate. They're passionate about BTS K9. So for those that don't know, BTS stands for Be the Solution. We're not going to create a problem. We're going to be the solution to your problem. And we're going to figure out how to solve that problem and be the solution, no matter what it is. And it's just really neat. It's just so cool. And our trainers are super tight knit. They work well together. They bounce things off of each other. We work with a lot of other companies, very renowned dog trainers that are been my mentors, and super grateful for them. It's just really neat.
I want to go back. We talked about, we wanted to cover a little bit of that early story and stuff. So, I mean, like, you're talking about your success now, but the transition, I'm glad we talked about that, because we bounced into the transition, the struggles that you had to where you're having success now.
Yeah.
A great story. But to get here, you had the dyslexia, then you go into the Army, and you have struggles there. You didn't have an easy path there as well.
No, but that was mostly self-inflicted.
Right. But there were some other times it was self-inflicted as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, you end up going 11 Bravo, you go to Ranger Regiment, we'll spend the time there, and then you end up going into a recon or a LURS unit. Yeah. Spend some time there, go to dive school, get all of that. So I just wanted to kind of cover that real quickly. But during that time period, you also, I think, realized, because we were talking about this off air, and it's kind of coming full circle of what you were just describing just now, is, or a little bit before that, is that you didn't have all this figured out, and you wish that you would have learned early on that you didn't have to be this other individual.
Yeah, I had mentioned that in a previous podcast where I was like, he asked me, he's like, what are 2 things that if you could go back and it doesn't change where you are today, and wouldn't have changed, I guess anything, what would you have done? And it was crazy, because he did tell me he was going to ask me that question at the very end. And it's, initially it was very daunting. It's like, ooh, that's a hard question. But what's weird was when he asked me, it was almost instantaneous. The question was, how transparent are you willing to be, And I was, the very first thing that came to mind was take more pictures. In my day, like, guys, we weren't really allowed to take pictures because of quote unquote OPSEC. And, thank the Lord, some of my photos are some of the most like recognized photos, like the Ranger looking up the stairwell and stuff like that, and then down the hallway during the early days. And, and those are like pretty much all I have. I don't have a whole lot of photos of any of my buddies either, so I regretted that. And then, I said, be less of a shitbag and more of an asset. And, when I was in Ranger Regiment, I was a physical specimen back then. I was genuinely super egotistical, couldn't shut my mouth. I wouldn't say I was argumentative, but I was always doing something dumb that would get myself in trouble. But at the same time, I was also went against the grain. I didn't agree with a lot of the culture that we had in Ranger Regiment, which I went against, which I regret immensely, because the culture is what makes regiment what it is, regardless of my opinion. I just remember a lot of really dumb stuff, like just saying dumb stuff, doing dumb stuff, trying to get laid, chasing tail, saying whatever I could say to get what I, and it was just dumb. It was very young and dumb stuff that I did. And my focus was not on the right things. I wasn't grounded. I don't think I was grounded in my faith as I should have been. And you would think I would have been, being homeschooled and raised extremely, religious. Sure as heck wasn't then. Drank nonstop. Like, I mean, and you know, once you create a reputation, it follows you. And so now it's extremely hard in Ranger Regiment to overcome that. And in Ranger Regiment really, really requires you to grow up fast, especially during the GWAT. You're very young. And, you know, it was crazy. We were talking about the other day, one of my platoon sergeants, and God, he was such a good dude. Adam Nash was his name. And he ended up becoming a sergeant major and whatnot, and a first sergeant and a sergeant major. But I was like sitting there looking at the math, and I'm like, this dude was 27 years old when he was my platoon sergeant.
Isn't that unreal?
And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like sitting there like, whoa, you know, and that was pure math. I don't know if that's
No,
accurate.
you're probably right. Yeah.
You know, and I looked at other stuff. You know, I'm not good at public math, as we already discussed.
He might have been behind the curve too, because that would have been 7 and 9. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are 7 and 7, so you're looking at 25, 26-year-old platoon sergeant.
Oh yeah, and then you know my first sergeant, you know, Edmund Seeley, he's legendary from 375, and you know the Black Rhino. You know, he just absolute stud. You know, he was extremely young. And I'm like looking at him now, which he doesn't look much different, but I see photos of him and he's got gray. You're looking old. I'm just glad I'm not anywhere near him. I'll have a knock on my door later.
But I think what you're talking about, though, is that those lessons learned, you didn't figure that out and mature to a point until you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And then you started looking introspectively at.
I had to. It was like,
Right.
And honestly, it was crazy because I hadn't hit rock bottom. I was getting ready to exit the military, and I didn't listen to him much later. And Black Hawk Down Colonel, his name's Kurt Smith. A lot of guys know who he is. He was a former Delta operator, but he was 6th Ranger Trained Battalion's XO at the time. And I had, at that time, going through my first divorce and my first debacle of everything going on in 2012.
And you were at 6 RTB at that time.
Yeah, and I was sitting at the Gator Lounge drinking a beer, and he walked in, sat down next to me, and he's like, "You doing all right?" And I'm like, "Not really," you know, and no suicide attempts. I was hardcore thinking about it. It didn't happen until many years later. No attempts, lots of drunken nights with a gun in my lap, but no attempts, you know. And he looked me up and he said, "Beplay, I'll tell you this. You can run fast, you can shoot really well, you can do all the things. But when you continuously have problems and the common denominator is you and your attitude, you need to look at yourself." And I got mad internally. Wasn't disrespectful to him. You know, he was a lieutenant colonel, and I was just like, I got so pissed. And then I remember I was sitting there drinking the beer, no joke, in my head is like, literally, I was like, what the F does he know? And then like, it was like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I just literally said, what the F does this dude know, who's a Delta operator, was in Black Hawk Down, he's a lieutenant colonel, he's done everything under the sun. Like, he knows everything. Like, absolutely. Like how the hell am I gonna, like, I'm a 20, at that time, I think I was 26, 27 years old. I was like, what an arrogant thing to say, right? And I look back at it now and I'm like, and I had all this advice, and then that's where it started. And it really didn't set in until after that cop at East Jetty Pass in Fort Walton sternum rubbed me and was like, "You good?" I'm like, holy moly, because the last thoughts that went through my brain were, I regret what I just did, but it's too late. I've already sent that round down range and I'm going to die now. And I just faded out, eyes rolled to the back of my head, and I was going to see my maker.
Talk about that, because I think it's worth bringing up.
Oh, absolutely. So long story short, second marriage. I had been out of the military for a while at this point. Things went bad and good and bad and good. I had this massive custody battle, and things would go good for a while. And it was real easy for me to blame it on and play the veteran victim mentality. And in a lot of ways, it really wasn't my fault. It was my ex-wife doing things, and unjustly, but like at the end of the day, I go, and it took a long time for me to introspectively look, and it's like, well, why is she doing that? Well, you ruthlessly cheated on her. She's scorned. And does that justify her doing what she's doing to you? No. But ultimately, the decision that she's making is based on something that I did to her. So those are called consequences, whether we want to admit it or not. And then, of course, people would come after me. He's like, oh, that guy's a piece of shit. He's a womanizer. Consequences. And I still didn't really learn my lesson in any of that, because, years later, it took several years for me to really set in. I mean, obviously, I'm depressed. I'm fighting for my daughters. I'm not getting anywhere. Now I'm in a second divorce, or about to be in a second divorce. We had just moved from Utah, lost my job in a college program that I completely loathe and hate, in a job that I hate. Got notified that my last paycheck from the fidget spinner guys isn't coming through, and they're going to short me by an ungodly, unsurmountable amount of money. And I walk out of a bathroom, and this individual looks me dead in my face. I'll leave them nameless. And says, "You're a horrible husband. You're a horrible father. You should just kill yourself." Like, it was super calm. Like, it was, I wouldn't say it was sadistic, but it was just like, they just said it. They were angry at me. And I said, that's all I didn't say anything. I just nodded my head. I walked straight into the bathroom. I grabbed absolutely every medication that I had in the bathroom, threw it into my Scion TC, drove out to the East Jetty Pass, and just started downing every single one of them. It's pitch black dark, Destin's off to my left. I'm staring at the stars. It still gets to me. It gets easier as you tell it more, I guess. But, and I remember at the very end, I was starting to get real lucid, and my heart started to race, like, super fast. And it was terrifying. I was absolutely like, oh my God, this is it. I'm going to die. And I'm like, who's going to tell my kids my story? My exes are going to tell them that I'm a big raging piece of shit and all these things. I've made the worst mistake of my life, but at that point, there's nothing I could do. And in the last moments, I go out, and I'm just absolutely in fear. And that was it. It was black nothingness. I remember nothing. The only thing I remember, come to think of it, actually, I'm just now remembering it, but it was just extreme heat. But that's because I was still unconscious. The sun came up, and I was cooking in the sun all day, getting all I know is I had blisters all over my body, and I looked like a hoopty because I had like 4 different types of burning as the sun crossed the sky from east to west, or west. Rises in the east and sets in the west.
You're right. But it did it from the beach side too.
Yeah. That was crazy. So, but yeah, I woke up, and that's actually what hurt. He was burning my chest from the sunburn, and I was like, He's like, oh man. I mean, I had puke all stuck to my face, pills all stuck to me. I vomited in the middle of the night, or day, or whatever it was, and it was already, sun was already going down. I mean, it was getting dark again, and I was like, he's like, I'm supposed to Baker Act you, right? And I'm like, yeah, prefer you not to do that. You know, and I was like, yeah. He's like, you going to get help? And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, you got kids and a wife? I was like, yeah. And he walked me into my car, gave me his card, ended up losing his card. So still looking for him to this day. And you know what, my at the time soon to be ex-wife, who we're friends now. We're great friends now. Talked to her right before I came in here. Didn't even really it was the worst hangover of my life. And she asked what I was doing, and I looked her dead in her face and I said, I went to try to kill myself. And she was like, what? And I don't think she really, I don't even know. I'd love to say, we've always talked about going on a podcast together with both my wife and my ex-wife, because that would be a lot of fun. Talk about
I don't know.
We'd break the internet with that one. The roast of Byron. But she, I don't think that ever really sunk in until much later. You know, I think it hit her pretty hard because, you know, she's being like, she apologized. She's like, I'm sorry I was never there for you like you needed to be. And, you know, I needed to be. We both were broken humans in a relationship. And that's one of the biggest things I learned from that, was that two human beings cannot be together if they're both broken. You know, and I had not worked on myself at all. And then that's when the work started happening. The divorce ensued. And I was like, I'm going to stay single. I'm going to focus on myself. And you know, that's when the homelessness occurred, because I wanted to make sure my son was taken care of, my girls were taken care of. I didn't care about anything else, but continuing to fight the good fight for my daughters and make sure that she was taken care of. And, you know, of course, you know, I burned out pretty rapidly on that. And then, you know, had to get a service dog. And
that, I mean, it's important that that piece we kind of skipped over, but that's an important aspect of the entire story.
Oh yeah, it's exactly what it was, the driving force that put me where I am today. And I get asked a lot. People ask me, "Is like, do you regret any of that?" And it was actually probably one of the hardest conversations I had probably a year or so ago with my daughter. And they're coming of age, you know, 17 and 15 or 14, excuse me, about to be 15. And, Dad, do you regret marrying Mom? And God, you know, hundreds of times that I felt like I regretted that, you know, that's an honest, and by that point I had already attended ayahuasca. So since then I've attended ayahuasca, which
I didn't know that part.
I did. That's fairly recent. Within the last year and a half, 2 years. 2 years. Actually, well, yeah. Two or more years now. And one of my best friends literally drugged me to it.
South America or Mexico?
No, Indian reservation right here in America.
No way.
Forgot where we went. Oklahoma. We went to Oklahoma, a reservation in Oklahoma. And I don't regret any of that. I don't regret.
I've never heard anybody say they regret that.
Yeah.
Ever.
I haven't either.
No, what I don't regret it. No, I don't regret ayahuasca. I mean, definitely don't regret that. But I don't regret marrying my daughter's mother.
Getting back to that.
Yeah.
Or my son's mother, because every little thing that I've gone through in my life, the self-inflicted crap I did in the military or not, you know, the two things that I learned during ayahuasca was take total ownership and know that everything is led you to where you are today. I have a 4-year-old daughter, a wife that is absolutely phenomenal. Marriage has not been perfect. You know, she went through a lot with me on the front end with the ammo company and the business and starting the dog training. We bought a 12,000, since then we bought a 12,000, since the first time I came on the show, we bought a 12,500 square foot canine training facility, which made us the largest canine training facility on the Eastern Seaboard.
Looks amazing as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work. And she has been my rock, my confidant, my best friend. And I would have never met her because what was I doing? I was homeless. I was under a bridge and her little butt was in there working out. And she caught my eye and I was pretty much living in the gym because that's where I took my shower, did all my school and everything else. I was trying to keep my car as far away from Stan and the boys. And the image.
Yeah.
But you know, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be a dog trainer. I would have never had the experience and the people that I've met. I wouldn't have had the interactions. I wouldn't have I don't even regret the suicide attempt because every time I do one of these podcasts and I bring that stuff up, somebody calls me and is like, I was sitting there and I mean, the last one I did and last person, I just recently with this last podcast, and the guy's like, dude, I was literally thinking about offing myself. And I'm like, dude, I'm so happy. Like, this makes this so worth it because it's like you're choosing a permanent solution for a very temporary problem. And was my problem, it doesn't end tomorrow, but it does end.
Yeah.
And it took 6.5 years of perseverance. And that's the thing. And you and I've talked about this in the past where it's like you leave the military and it's like we lose that perseverance.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you went through RIP and RASP and the Q course, or you went through this, that, the other, and you've just give up and then you take on this victim mentality.
Wounded.
Yeah, I'm wounded.
Yeah.
I saw so much combat and I'm so much PTSD, and I get it. It's there. I have it too, but like we learn to cope. I feel like I have more PTSD from my former marriages than I do from combat sometimes. I'm going to hear about this one later. Just kidding. Kind of.
Yeah.
No, I think, what you went through is your struggles, is your story. And it's so important that people understand that they may see Byron, the success, Byron, the guy that's got it all together, that's traveling all over, doing canine training, the work that you did in North Carolina after the hurricane and all the things that you've done, and think, man, that guy's got it all together. Mm-hmm. But it's important to hear this part of the story.
Yeah.
But you're still crazy, man, as hell. You've even recently said it that all the hobbies that you have something to do with death.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, I was gonna bring that up.
Totally.
Yeah.
He said it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I like things where your inability to pay attention to detail results in your death.
Well, that leads us right into Mr. Beast.
Was a no joke cold call.
Was it? Like just out of the blue?
Dude, so the story goes from casting at Mr. Beast. I'm actually doing a photo shoot and some breaching stuff with Clandestine Media up at T1G.
Okay.
And no joke, this girl calls me initially, and I actually have no idea who this is. And it's like, hey, this is Mr. Beast.
But it's a female voice.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm like, who's that? Got a few questions for you. Are you afraid of confined spaces? I'm like, no. Are you afraid of explosions simultaneously in the background? They're setting off a breach. Gadoosh! And I'm like, clearly not. And it's crazy because I literally hang up the phone after they asked me all these questions. They told me to go call my family because I had no idea who they were. I walk over to Clay and Luke, the owner, and I tell them you don't know. They look at me and they're like, you don't know who he is? Like, what a loser. And then I literally call my kids and they're like, you're doing it, right? My wife knows who he is. I'm like, how do I not know who this person is?
I didn't know who it was until I saw your video.
Yeah.
These guys knew, but I didn't know.
It's a kid's thing, but that's what I think. Well, I don't think, but they're trying to get a better
Like an older audience.
A little older. That's exactly it. So I ended up doing it, of course, and I show up, and I talked to the casting, like, yeah, we literally Googled like Army military special operations ruck marching, because initially they wanted me to go across. It ended up getting canceled because it was just too hot, and I would do it at night. And it was really funny because they asked me, I was like, how would you do this type of a challenge? I was like, oh, I'd move it at night. And they're like, yep, see, we can't video that. But I was like supposed to do something very cool, and it wouldn't have worked. But so they found me there, and then they got this next challenge, and they're like, oh, this guy would be perfect for that. So they call me and whatnot, and yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
So the premise of the show is that you start off with $500,000, right?
Yep.
And the objective is you have so many tasks,
7,
that you have to complete, each one of them more and more challenging.
Yeah.
And of course, if it's timed events or if you make mistakes or whatever.
Believe it or not, none of it was actually timed.
Oh, it's more about the mistakes then.
It's about mistakes, and it's about completion. And so, like,
yeah, because if you completed the task, you continue with that amount of money.
Yeah, if you watch, there's a behind the scenes.
Yeah.
On it's the channel.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's funny. So Mr. Beast 2 channel, there's a complete behind the scenes of everything. And so they legitimately like tie this rock to me and throw me into the ocean. But they get my reaction when they basically explain to me what the challenge is. And I'm like laying in this boat, I'm in a wetsuit, I'm clearly knowing what's going on to some extent. And they're like, yeah, so it's surviving the world's deadliest traps. So I'm like, fuck yeah, and they all start laughing. They're like, this dude's a complete psychopath, and of course they're like, I get out there, I still don't know what it is. And finally, they had to transfer me, so they had to take my mask off, but they still didn't really tell me. But of course I figured it out, and it's like, there's a rock, there's a bunch of chain. I'm like, oh, this is gonna suck, I'm like looking around, and and they're really good at hiding their safety divers. So I'm like, this really sucks. And I'm like sitting there going, do we got like safety divers or something? And like they had them, but they're just really good about, making me feel uncomfortable as I'll get out. And they were awesome. They were super awesome dudes. And so I do the whole thing. And of course I come up and I'm like, yeah. And, and it was like, okay, there's 7 more. It's like, huh? Like, wait, what? I got 7 more of these things? I'm like thinking I'm like going home with like $500,000 right now. I'm like, nah.
Okay, what was the next event?
So the next one was we had to do, they locked me in a room with a bear. Like if it wasn't on TV, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Anything I'm saying.
It was a real bear.
It was a real bear.
They must have fed him though, because he wasn't looking real hungry.
I was not scared because it was a trained TV bear until everything's fine. And then you see everything unfold exactly the way it unfolded. And then right towards the end,
I noticed that
he grabs this bag, and I'm like, son of a gun. And I went to go grab the bag, and I don't know why they didn't put this in the video, but the bear literally turns his head and just shows his teeth at me. And I'm like, oh. And there's a safety trainer guy behind me, and he's holding a tranquilizer gun. And what I think is that, I could be wrong, I don't know what it was, but I went, oh. And then that was when they realized, they saw me get nervous for the first time, and then they're like, how you feel? I'm like, I'm screaming on the inside right now, like a little kid, like, oh man. So now I'm like pounding on everything, and I get the bag away, and I get it, and I win. So the next one, and then this is where it starts getting real. Like, that wasn't difficult. It's just do the thing, right? And they lift me up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 100 feet over the water, and I have to like land these bags. And this is when I start losing money. And it's just,
you gotta land the bags on targets.
On target. And it's hanging off.
Right. It's like a scaffold kind of thing.
And dude, it wasn't joking. They got it too. I can't believe they got it on film, but it was like,
how high was it? Because
over 100 feet.
Okay, so you're trying to get it to fall with wind or whatever.
Yeah.
And hit the target.
And hit target. And if it bounces off, which is exactly what happens, you lose it. And so I guess in the first time in Mr. Beast's history, a contestant negotiates his money back. And they had told me prior to going up, they're like, hey, it was like in between, they had already revealed it. We're getting ready to start. He's like, if you feel like you want to, you could jump off if you want. So as I'm like, I'm not even focused on what he just said. And it didn't even click to do this until I'm like pretty much done. And I'm watching my money disappear. And I'm like, I'm going to negotiate my money back. And you actually see the thought process. I'm like getting in my head, and I even say it out loud. I'm holding on to the thing. And I mean, they had those things so perfect where I'm like, oh God, I'm like tippy toes, everything. And I'm like, I got a deal for you. And like dude, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did not adjust that harness. And like a cherry airborne jumper, jumped off that platform thinking it was going to be one of those like self-arrest where it slowly lowers you down. No, this is like complete free fall and just rips me. And I was like, oh. And I'm like this, and you even see it, and he's like, you're crazy. I've been told that once or twice. Like my nuts are completely swollen the size of grapefruits at this point. And and then the next one that they did, they took me, and I didn't think I was going to make it through this one. This was the minefield. So we had to like remote control cars, and they let me practice, but I didn't know what I was doing. And then I get out there, and then like within 2 seconds, I blow up my car. I'm like, I'm not making it out of this. And I did. Literally was like just gun the car across the thing, and I was like, oh, now I know I got to clear out, cleared the ID. And we walked it through, and everything was gravy. And then the next two things were probably the most disconcerting. They buried me alive.
Yeah, that one was freaky.
And what you don't see is it was 40 minutes of them burying me. And then Jimmy, and you'll see it in the thing, he goes, did you send water down? And I'm like eating, he sent my favorite, which was the habanero duos, mango habanero. And I'm like, you jerk. It's like, I hate you right now. I'm sitting there, had to eat all this jalapeno stuff, and no water's like, we forgot that. And they even got that in the behind the scenes, and it was really funny. I climb out of it, get out of that thing, and what you don't also know is that that was 1 hour from the time that I did that one to the next challenge. And the next challenge by far was the hardest sprint I've ever done in my life. And walking down this corridor, this was the first challenge. I have zero idea what I'm doing whatsoever. Like none. Like I couldn't figure it out under my mask. I couldn't deduct from sounds or anything like that. I was like straight sear mode. Like I was eating chicken and rice, drinking 3 gallons of water a day because I had no idea what the next thing was going to be. Treating it like a selection, right? And it was like the cage drops, you see the thing, and it's like this 50 to 70 foot tower. And it results in me having to climb it with all my money attached. And as I'm sitting there, Jimmy's like, are you praying? And what had just happened was one of the producers allowed my son to stick his head through the curtain, and I did not know they had made it. And I could hear my 4-year-old screaming outside, which meant my wife and my youngest daughter were there. And he goes, Dad. And I got emotional, and it was literally in that moment, which is caught on camera. I was like, I'm either going to be in the hospital tonight or I'm going to be dead. There's no way they're going to see me quit. There's just absolutely no way. I can't do it. And I had this whole plan derived that I'm going to go halfway up. I'm going to rest. And there was none of that. I got 20 feet up it and realized, nope, This is a sprint. And the longer I'm on this wall, the more I'm going to get gassed. And I just muscled every inch I could get up there. And then it was 200, I think they said when they weighed it afterwards, it was 225 pounds.
I don't know how you did it. It was attached to you. Yeah, it was hanging and attached to him. And he had to go up this wall.
Yeah. It was bar none the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I'm not even kidding.
You missed the blow up piece, which was the detonation that you had to.
Nope, that's the last.
Oh, that's last.
That's last. And what's funny is if you watch, and I like this because I can actually talk about it now because they released the behind the scenes, but the first bomb didn't go off. And Jimmy was like, it's like the biggest bomb that Mr. Beast has ever blown up. And I'm like, oh God. So I'm like, you know, on my off time, I'm looking at my phone trying to see all the bombs that he's done. I'm looking at all the other challenges where they've done similar stuff. So, you know, I build this apparatus, you know, and it was really fun. I'm like, too easy. The minute they told me, and then the rules came and it was like, you can't bury it. I'm like, damn it. Crap. You know, it was like, all right. And so we start working and we're getting it all done. And I finished pretty quick. They only gave me like 8 hours or something like that. And then my whole family's there. And I'm literally, they had this chair set up and they're like, we want you just to sit here. And I don't know if they just like know the psychology of everything. And this is it. And I just immediately, like, I got in my head. I got emotional. I was like sitting there staring at this like, holy moly. Like, this is insane. And like, we had just blown up our tractor. I didn't have, you know, $80,000 to go buy a new tractor for my ranch. And I'm sitting there just like, what am I going to do? I don't know how to do this. And like, this is it. This is it. This isn't just a tractor. This is getting my entire business, family, and everyone out of debt. You know, like, I hope I did. And I'm going through my head, like, what could I have missed? Finish this whole thing off. And then finally the second bomb goes off, you know, and it just, and they were like, all right, you can go outside and put out the fire, you know, but I had basically saved my money. And then they're like, you know how to use a forklift. So I went out there just spearing the absolute crap out of everything, knocking everything over like freaking, you know, Leroy Jenkins out there with awesome. A skid steer. We finally get it open and the money was untouched. And I was like, yes, you know.
$350,000?
348,000, I think is what it rounded out to.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I know. So it was pretty amazing. It was an amazing opportunity. Mr. Beast and Jimmy and their whole staff is just absolutely phenomenal. They always say, you know, be careful of meeting famous people, and they're just salt of the earth, every one of them. Like every single one of the crew, the cameraman, every single sound person, Jimmy himself, all of the other talent, Carl, Nelson, or Nolan, all of them, dude. They're, you know, just amazing. And you can tell like their mission, which is like making the world a better place. And it's really neat because Jimmy at one point asks me and he goes, you know, one phrase that sums Byron up. And he goes, all I want to be known for is making this world a better place. That's it. And I walk in to go take a piss inside headquarters, and in big ass letters across the wall it says, Mr. Beast, making the world a better place. And he just like looks over at me and smiles. And I was like, dang. And then it was really neat because then they invited me back out for a bit for the dogs. So they saw us run our dogs, and my sister, Becky, run her dogs. And I got to run Odin a little bit. And then what was even funnier was it was all those guys were like my super close buddies. So Carlos Alberti with Old Dixie Kennels, Mike Edwards, Andy Arbito, and Jonathan Belton, and Jeff Thompson of Sub-Second, who was a Green Beret. And I was like, hey, you guys asked for the best. You know, they're like, dang, dude, you got Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Army Rangers, and, you know, that one Marine. So that's messed up. Nah, I love him to death. Jonathan's my man, dude. He works with Rescue 22. So he was a recon Marine, and he's phenomenal, dude. Phenomenal guy. So,
well, so if they pick up the phone and call you again and say, hey, we got another challenge for you, you doing it?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Hands down. Oh yeah, hands down. I started doing a lot of different little things for them, so that's kind of part of the reason why I've recently resigned.
There might be a part 2 then.
There's more than likely. So
nice.
so we'll see.
Well, I'll put the link to the show and everything.
Yeah,
Send me the
absolutely.
video when it all went down. It was like, holy.
I know, right?
I kept watching this thing, and the more I kept watching, I'm like, dude, you're doing another one? And then it was like another one. It was like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it.
It's honestly, it got so crazy. I started having to I resigned from a bunch of stuff that I was doing because it was just so much. And I was like, I really cannot, when the phone call comes, I've got to be able to go. And the amount of money that, between that and all the opportunities that came from that, it was like overwhelming. Like I was completely overwhelmed because for the first time in a long time, it was just 98% all positive. It was crazy. And we all know how our community is. It's super negative. Eat our own.
Yeah.
Oh, I deserve that. How did he get that? I'm going to start talking crap about that guy. Let me make some stuff up and do all this craziness. And it was just like, really didn't get any of that, and I had a blast.
You need to knock on the table.
I know, right? Yeah, I got it. Right.
This show hasn't aired yet.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. I mean, nothing more than I've already done. It can't be any worse. Can't expose what's already been exposed. So.
Well, I was going to ask you what's next for you, but it sounds like you're already preparing for that.
Yeah, I got a lot of big stuff. You'll start seeing a lot more skydiving coming from me, and there's a lot of neat stuff coming from that, and working with a lot of really neat companies that are doing some really neat things all over the world and making the world a better place.
Nice. Love it, man. I love it for you.
Yeah.
For all that you've gone through and knowing you for whatever the last 5 years, it's really cool to see you have this success and having all the love. You're feeling the love. I can tell it from you.
Yeah, it's neat. It's what makes it worth it is when you get the people, that tell you, I did this because of what you said. I chose the right choice based on what you said. I didn't leave my wife, or I didn't do the thing, or I didn't kill myself, or whatever it is that, I went to RIP and I shut my mouth and was a gray man, more of a gray man because of what you said. Oh, maybe he'll be the next great Sergeant Major, the great, Sergeant Major Merritt or Walker or Birch, good, because if my mistakes can change somebody else's learning curve, I don't care, that makes it all worth it,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the things that when we first started off, it was like, if you just change, like every once in a while you get that phone call, that text or whatever, and one person, you make a difference with one person.
Right.
Then you've done.
Yeah.
Done.
That's all I want. All of the cool guy schools and the silly stories, and I've never gotten on a podcast and told just wild, no shit, there I was in grenade pins and stuff. And I don't want that. That's not what I actually want to be known for. I want to be known for the guy that is super transparent, that takes 100% total ownership over things and will openly talk about stuff and to help other people out. That's the ultimate goal, is like, what is it worth if you can't take what you've done wrong and turn that, well, you actually said earlier, what was it? Taking chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it is, and I'm blessed. I got a beautiful ranch, a beautiful family, with friends that I can't even begin to describe, that are just second to none. And I get to hang out with you fine gentlemen.
I love it, man.
Man, thanks for coming on, man.
I appreciate it. I know we went over time.
No, not at all. No, not at all. I'm glad that you came all this way, and I'm glad we were all along your way, or you went out of your way to come this way, whatever
Absolutely.
it was.
Yeah, dude, you guys, I love this. You guys really are making a difference in the active duty military, law enforcement, and military, world leadership, and I love it.
But then you're going to have to come back by again.
I'm here for it.
All right, man. Definitely make it happen.
Absolutely, my brother. My brother. Absolutely. Your beard is absolutely glorious.
It's the
I'm
second
pretty
co-star.
sure I got pregnant just staring
It's
at
the
it.
third co-host, man.